He believed in waiting for the perfect moment, and that belief kept him from ever truly beginning. Silas was a farmer, not a young man anymore. His hands, gnarled like the ancient oak by his porch, had worked the earth for 60 years. His farm was small, nestled in a quiet valley where the seasons moved with a slow, deliberate grace. In winter, everything paused. The fields lay fallow, blanketed in white, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Silas, too, lived in the stillness, his days marked by the gentle rhythm of the clock and the quiet hum of his thoughts. He wasn't a man of many words, preferring the company of the silent fields and the steady warmth of his old wood stove. His life was simple, predictable, and deeply rooted in the land he tended, or rather, the land he prepared to tend. But within Silas, a different kind of winter had settled. For years, he had held on to a collection of rare, precious seeds he'd saved from his father, seeds he'd dreamt of planting in the perfect spring. He imagined vibrant fields, bountiful harvests, a legacy. Yet, year after year, those seeds remained in their small cloth bags, tucked away in an old wooden chest. Spring would arrive, sometimes a little too wet, sometimes a touch too dry. Summer would promise, then threaten with early winds. Autumn would bring its chill too quickly. Silas would watch the weather, consult his almanac, and always find a reason to wait. Not quite right, he'd murmur to himself, his brow furrowed with a familiar anxiety. He feared failure more than anything. He feared planting and having the crop wither, the soil turn barren, his efforts wasted. His quiet mind, so adept at observing the subtle shifts of nature, was even more skilled at conjuring every possible what-if scenario, painting vivid pictures of drought, blight, and disappointment. This deeply rooted fear, this paralysis of perfectionism, kept him from even taking the first step. He believed he was being wise, patient, discerning, but in truth, he was simply waiting for a spring that would never arrive. A condition that was flawlessly ideal, leaving his precious seeds untouched, his potential harvest forever a dream. One biting afternoon, as the first flakes of a coming snow began to drift lazily from the iron-gray sky, Silas sat by his window. His gaze fell upon a single, tenacious weed, pushing its way through a crack in the frozen stone wall near his barn. It was a common, ordinary weed, yet it held a surprising vibrancy. It wasn't waiting for the earth to warm or the sun to shine reliably. It was simply existing, pushing against the cold, reaching for the meager light available. In that quiet moment, a question, small and persistent as the weed itself, bloomed in Silas's heart. What if the perfect moment is simply the moment you choose to begin? Not a grand revelation, not a sudden burst of courage, but a soft whisper of possibility, a challenge to his long-held belief that waiting was always wisdom. He thought about the countless springs he had let slip by, the seeds still dormant, their life unlived. He realized that the greatest risk wasn't failure in the field, but the quiet, slow death of a dream in his own heart, untouched, unattempted. The true barrenness wasn't in the soil, it was in the inaction. That very evening, after the snow had begun to gather on the windowsills, Silas did something he had never done before. He opened the old wooden chest. He didn't pull out the rare, precious seeds. Instead, he chose a small bag of hardy, common winter wheat. He wasn't planning a grand harvest, not yet. This was different. The next morning, bundled against the biting cold, Silas went out to a small, unremarkable patch of ground behind his barn, a patch he usually ignored. The earth was hard, resisting his shovel. His old bones ached, and his breath plumed white in the frigid air. He broke the soil, not easily, but with a quiet, determined persistence. He sowed the seeds, not with the fervent hope of a summer planting, but with a simple, almost defiant act of faith in the act itself. He wasn't expecting a miracle. He was simply planting. Days bled into weeks. The snow deepened, covering his small patch entirely. His neighbors, if they had known, would have thought him mad, planting in the heart of winter. But Silas kept going. Every day he would walk to that patch, clear a small corner, and look. There was nothing, of course, just frozen earth. Yet, a quiet shift began within him. The act of tending, of checking, of simply being present with the possibility, started to loosen the grip of his anxiety. He wasn't waiting anymore. He was acting. He was doing. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, as the darkest days of winter began to yield to the first faint hints of a longer light, a tiny green shoot, fragile yet resolute, pushed through the frozen crust, then another, and another. Not a field of gold, not a grand harvest, but a small, vibrant patch of green, a living testament to a beginning, a quiet whisper of life defying the deep sleep of winter. It was a small victory, but it meant everything. Maybe you are waiting to, maybe you have a dream, a quiet ambition, a seed of an idea tucked away in your own heart, waiting for the perfect spring. We often tell ourselves it's not the right time, not the right conditions. Our quiet minds, so often prone to overthinking, can conjure 1,000 reasons to delay, 1,000 fears of failure, 1,000 scenarios where things go wrong. Perhaps you are a highly sensitive person, feeling the weight of every potential setback, every imagined criticism, so acutely that it paralyzes you into inaction. We meticulously plan, we endlessly prepare, we gather all the information, all the skills, all the confidence, hoping for that one flawless moment when everything aligns. But like Silas, we discover that such a moment rarely arrives. Life, in its beautiful, messy reality, rarely offers perfectly clear skies. It often presents us with winter cold, uncertain, challenging. The lesson isn't about overcoming every obstacle before you start, but about finding the courage to take that first small, imperfect step, even when everything around you feels frozen and inhospitable. It's about planting in your own personal winter, knowing that the act of beginning, however small, is itself the most profound harvest. The true growth, the most resilient beauty, often emerges not when conditions are ideal, but precisely because they are not. It's in the quiet defiance, the gentle persistence, the simple act of choosing to sow when the world says wait. Your greatest harvest might not be the visible fruit, but the quiet strength you find in daring to plant, even in winter. Begin anyway. Just begin.